Welcome in to another episode of Building the Pride. I am your host, Drew, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mike. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Drew, how about yourself?
I don't know.
You don't know. We're not doing as good as Jared Goff's bank account, right?
Well, and that's why I said what I said. So, got some schmutz on my hat. So, that's the big topic today. Yeah. So, just to kind of ease into it, I would like to make a small note to anybody who might listen to this that over the last 4 weeks, the Lions have doled out $444 million in contracts to Amon-Ra St. Brown, Penei Sewell, and the topic of tonight's conversation, Jared Goff.
Jared Goff.
So we are going to talk about that contract, what we know about it. He did get the truck. And then we are trying to stall a little bit to see if someone will come out with some information on the breakdown of the contract, which would be super cool. They had Antoine Winfield's up almost immediately after he signed it, but when it comes to Jared Goff, no such luck. So
we do have a little bit of a breakdown. Let me see if I can find it here. There it is. Share that, pop that on the screen here, get our banner off. So, per Albert Breer, I don't know who that is, so I don't know how reliable this is.
Oh, he's reliable.
Is he? Okay. $73 million signing bonus, $125 million over the first 2 years, an additional $40 million the third year, and $57 million in 2028, which is an option year. Because he had the reports were around $170 million guaranteed. So the way that I take that is year 4 is the totally unguaranteed. The first $165 million that we are spending will be guaranteed. Hatters, they finally listened to you. They extended Jared Goff.
It's a pipeline.
So the thing that we don't know yet is whether there are any void years, right? Because that matters a lot. That $73 million is going to be either A, divided over 4 years, which puts it at about $18.2 million per year, or over 5 or 6 years if they added a couple voids. That matters, right?
So it does matter. And if the contracts that they have signed other people to, whether in free agency or on extension, are any indication, there will be void years attached to. There's a void year attached to Penei Sewell's contract at the very end. And I'm checking Amon-Ra St. Brown's right now. He has 3 void years on his deal. So I'm not exactly sure what goes into the math when you can, depending on how many void years that you can add. But I would be really surprised if the Lions did not have at least one, possibly more, on the back end of this deal, which the more void years that you have on there, the larger the denominator on the signing bonus being spread over multiple years gets lower. And so there's a really good chance that even though it's 53 million AAV, that it's more like 35 or 40, at least in the first couple years. And then typically what you would see is a huge jump. He might cost 55, 60 million dollars in that third year. And then it looks like the fourth year is a team option with all the guaranteed money already spent. So
Header says it's more like 47 average, he believes.
Okay, excellent.
It really comes down to like, does he play out the whole contract? If he does, it's 53. There's no getting around it because he's getting the full signing bonus. He's getting the full 57 million in year 4. It's going to cost us $212 million. There's no getting around that. So I'll be curious to see if he plays that last year. The way that Albert Breer breaks it down is so of the $125 million over the first 2 years, he gets to keep $73 million of it as a signing bonus, right? So the remaining 52 is salary. Um, so assuming there's no void years, let's start with that. Let's go with the all right. If there's no void years option, the first 2 seasons will be $52 million in salary plus $36.5 million in the cap hit on the signing bonus. So that puts us at what? I cannot apparently run the calculator today. 52 plus 36.5. 88.5 million over 2 years. So 44.25 million for the first 2 years is what our cap hit would be with a no void year situation. Year 3, he's making $40 million in salary, $18.25 million in signing bonus proration for a $58.5 million year 3. Year 4 is the 57 plus the 18.25, which puts it at 73 or $75 million in year 4. Those are some pretty huge numbers. And that's why I've got to believe that there's going to be probably 1 to 2 void years. I think you can only go 5 years out, though, right, Drew? So if this is a 4-year deal, they can probably only add 1 void year for now, and then they can always restructure it and add another year next year.
So
Does that sound right?
so if Deshaun Watson's contract is any indication, like that contract was set up to restructure multiple times, right? And the Lions have certainly shown a proclivity for restructuring guys. They restructured Carlton Davis right off the bat. Like it's something that's on their radar. They're willing to push money that you have to give now into the future when it's worth less, right? Yep. So, hey Pat, how you doing? And well, I mean, we're not fully counting all the incentives, I think, Hatters, because those don't come into play unless you reach them, right? So, like, when the conversation will eventually get to the point where we discuss, like, oh, what might some of those incentives be? What are the likelihood that he meets them? So,
and they don't count against the cap until the year that it goes into. So, if he's got incentives for each of the next 4 years, you only count against the cap the year you're going into, and they determine it at the beginning of the fiscal year based on the likeliness that they get it, that they're going to achieve that. I don't know how they determine the likeliness, but the NFL is the one that says, yeah, we believe this is likely, so therefore it's going to count against the cap. Or no, it's probably not likely, so therefore it doesn't. Now, the interesting thing is, if they get it or don't get it, it at the end of the fiscal year does or doesn't count against the cap when the final numbers come. So it's kind of weird. They count it against the cap or they don't at the beginning, and then they readjust at the end. So it's a really weird thing with incentives, which is probably why they're never really talked about. Win the Super Bowl and then trade Goff for a king's ransom.
Well, they won't do that.
God, can you imagine the PR nightmare? We win the first championship since 1957, and we get rid of the most important piece to our any football team.
I understand where Hatters is coming from. I do. Like that.
That's the peak value, right?
That makes sense to me, right? That makes if this was my Madden team, and someone showed up, and was like, "Hey, here's 3 or 4 ones," we'll take Jared and the contract off your hands. Like, there's nothing that says that a guy on this kind of contract can't be traded, right? We saw Aaron Rodgers get traded. It happens. So, however, I put the odds at something like that at almost 0, because if there's anything this organization has indicated now is that, like, if you are quote unquote one of their guys, you're here forever. You're for life. You're a lifer. That's, I think,
there'd have to be a big blow up between him and management and
Well,
coaching.
yeah,
or a huge drop off in play.
Yeah, there are certainly things that could precipitate a change, but by year 3, Goff won't be a top 10 paid QB. Yeah, they are committed to their players. So they've made Penei Sewell the highest paid tackle in the NFL. They made Amon-Ra St. Brown the highest paid wide receiver. in the NFL, and Goff is currently the second highest paid quarterback, only behind Joe Burrow. So I have to assume, if this trend continues, that both Aleem McNeil and Aiden Hutchinson are going to be paid top of the market deals when their extensions come up.
Yeah.
So for
Which,
DT, that looks like Chris Jones got 31. I wouldn't pay Aleem McNeil $31 million because he's not Chris Jones. But I think that Aiden Hutchinson has a shot at setting the market for edges, assuming
I think he will.
Assuming he just keeps playing at the level that he's playing at right now. So
ASIC says when he said by year 3 he won't be a top 10 paid quarterback, saying enough other quarterbacks will get new contracts by then, he's not top 10 by year 3. I disagree with that only because the elite quarterbacks literally just got paid this year. There's not a ton of them that are going to, like, Burrow's not going to get a new contract in the next 3 years, right? Josh Allen's not. Patrick Mahomes is not. Like, all of the ones that would jump him by a lot had already just signed, and he's already the number 2 highest paid quarterback. So I actually disagree with Justin or A6 here because I don't think there's enough quarterbacks. I don't think there are 9 more quarterbacks that are due for a raise in the next 3 years that are going to get paid more than him.
So
Dak probably will, Tua probably will, but who else is on that list, right?
Well, let's go through it, Mike, because I got the list up right now.
Excellent.
Okay, so we're just going to kind of go down the top. Burrow got paid, Herbert got paid, Jackson got paid, Hurts got paid, Murray got paid. Deshaun Watson got paid, but if he makes it back to free agency and there's a bidding war, that's a possibility. Might be unlikely, but that's a possibility. Kirk Cousins, we think, is probably only in Atlanta for the next 2 seasons. There's a chance.
You don't know.
There's a chance. Matthew Stafford has said that he wanted more guaranteed money.
He's only got 1 more year left on that deal.
Yep. Josh Allen got paid. Patrick Mahomes got paid. I think Dak Prescott's going to get $60 million a year from the Cowboys.
So I think he's going to get paid. He'll be one of them that jumps.
Okay. Could Aaron Rodgers demand some kind of extension from the Jets? That's a possibility. Then we have the rookies who, like the first-year contract guys who haven't gotten it yet, and that's Tua Tagovailoa, who might, and Trevor Lawrence, who will. Jordan Love, if he plays the way that he is currently doing it, might. That would be year 3 of this extension, would be year 4 of Caleb Williams. So depending on the timing, he certainly will set the market. And then out Anthony Richardson might. And I'm just going through the rest of the list. I don't see anybody else.
I got OTC quarterbacks up right now. That helps.
Well, that's what I was looking at. I just wasn't doing it on the stream. But like, Stroud. There's a possibility of Stroud too. Yep, that's a good point. Thank you, Justin. So
he's going to be on a 5-year rookie deal, and he's talking the next 3 years. I don't think Stroud's going to be available to.
I think he said by year 3 of his deal, right? So if it's year 3 of his deal, that's 4 seasons from now. He has the last year of his current deal. Next year's extension kicks in. So this would be 24, 25, 26, 27. So
Daniel Jones, maybe.
Well, I think that would be.
He's not getting that.
Right. But so I think that if everybody who potentially could get paid does get paid, there's a chance that Justin's right.
Yeah.
But I think that that's a pretty small chance because if one of them doesn't, then
I mean, if any of those guys, if Stroud's rookie year was an aberration, if Richardson doesn't live up to the hype, if Trevor Lawrence, I think he's probably going to get there.
Yeah. He will.
If I think Caleb Williams will, but like if he doesn't live up to the hype, like there's a lot of guys that have to live up to the hype as young quarterbacks. And if you look at the last set of, quarterbacks, it hasn't looked good for that, right? your Trey Lance and Zach Williams, like that whole group, other than Trevor Lawrence, has been a nightmare, right? None of those guys are going to make it. So I think it's going to be close. Justin also says, also think some worse guys get paid more just because the market will be so high by then.
And that's the thing that's going to happen, right? Is that, like, I mean, Dak Prescott has not won an MVP. He has a losing record in the playoffs. Hell, Lamar Jackson has a losing record in the playoffs. But, like, you know, if you are up and you're the next guy, you just get the money. That's it. There's no quantifiable reason.
You think Geno Smith is going to get $60 million?
No, but I don't think he performs at the same level as the other guys, and certainly doesn't have the hype around him that the other guys did. Whether that's draft status or like prestige of the team, or how willing that team is in order to like not want to move off quarterback. And like let's look at our homegrown boy here. What has Jared Goff done? He's been to the Super Bowl once. He was the number 1 overall pick. We won 2 playoff games in the 3rd year of him being the quarterback of this team.
Yep.
And he got $53 million a year. So the rationale the Lions applied to Jared Goff is easily, I think, if you want to put yourself in the other team's shoes, you could easily see how other teams, Jacksonville, Houston, whomever, Dallas, would be like, he's a pillar. He's what a Dallas Cowboy should be. He's what a Jacksonville Jaguar should be. And so we're going to pay him because he's quote unquote our guy. And that's the Jared Goff contract. Because other people now will be like, look, Jared Goff got this. Why don't I think
that? Goff has done, I mean, he got to the Super Bowl.
That's the mentality that the Lions just used to give Goff this money.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but like, let's look at what he's actually done, though, right? He got them. Yeah, he got them to the Super Bowl. He got us to the NFC Championship game.
Sure.
Like those are big deals. Now, granted, he didn't win the Super Bowl, didn't win the NFC Championship game, but he got those guys there. So like Anthony Richardson to be a Colt quarterback, like, you know, Goff is a Lion, like he needs to get those guys there.
No, he doesn't. He just has to.
I mean, that was the deal that was what got Goff paid, right? Is doing those things
in year 8, after he had established the fact that he is a NFL quarterback. All Anthony Richardson and Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud need to do is to be the best option that those teams have, and like not say it's blatantly obvious that we have to get rid of this guy. This guy didn't go to massage parlors. This guy didn't throw 45 interceptions this year. You know, we are a playoff team. If they are playoff teams or 500 teams and those are still their quarterbacks when they're due up, they're going to get money.
Yeah. Do you think Daniel Jones is a cautionary tale that people are going to consider when you've got a average at best quarterback and you're going to throw, you know, back the brakes truck up to him? Or do you think they're going to forget about it and go,
I think
we're not going to make that mistake. Only the Giants will.
Well, I think that what happened with Daniel Jones, I think there's two contracts like this in the NFL, and that's Daniel Jones and Deshaun Watson. I think those 2 contracts, the rest of the NFL looked at and they're like, we're not using that as precedents.
Right.
We will not use that as precedents. So, I mean, because no one, I mean, like the whole reason Lamar Jackson held out as long as he did, was that he wanted more guaranteed money like Deshaun Watson got. Yeah. And the Ravens were like, we're not doing that. You know, maybe we'll go higher on the AAV. We'll give you an extra year, a player option, no trade clause, something, more upfront money, whatever you want. But we are not committing to a 100% guaranteed contract. Deshaun Watson, for all the nonsense, he had multiple teams over a barrel. That's what it looks like. That's what you can get when you have all the leverage, right? That's the position Dak Prescott's in. So, so that's what I expect Dak to ask for. Except I think that he's going to be like, I will back off on the guaranteed money as a concession in order to get to 60.
Yeah.
But I will bet someone a steak dinner right now that when he signs his extension, it's a $60 million a year contract. So, and then with Daniel Jones, it was wasn't really performing well rookie year, didn't really perform well his second year. Like third year, he had a year where he kind of cleaned things up a little bit. And then his fourth year, he got hurt. Signed the extension. They did, which was wrong because they had a new coaching change and their GM change and the whole thing, and you should have gotten rid of them. Like when you bring in all those, the new front office and the coaching staff, you should get rid of your quarterback unless it's somebody that's like, oh, that's Drew Brees or that's Patrick Mahomes or whatever. And you just start fresh and you just cut ties. Opportunity cost sunk. Like, let's go. But I think that the rest of the NFL is like, the Giants made a mistake. We're not going to use that mistake to set ourselves up for a potential mistake as well. So that's why I think when you see guys like Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence get to the point in their careers where they're going to have their second contracts, they're just going to allow the market to dictate and not be based off of what Daniel Jones got. And like what Daniel Jones got now is nothing.
Well, that suits him fine then.
Right. So, I mean, like if somebody like Kirk Cousins or someone who might be slightly less valuable on the open market gets to the open market, that's when I think you'll see another Daniel Jones contract.
So that's interesting you bring up Cousins. That was something A6 and I were chatting about, and the difference between what Goff got, $170 million guaranteed, versus what Kirk Cousins got, $100 million guaranteed. Now, granted, that was a 3-year deal and not a 4-year deal. My question...
deal.
Oh, it was that's true. It was a 4-year deal. So my question to you is, would you rather have Kirk Cousins and the additional $70 million or Jared Goff?
What are you talking? This isn't even a choice. I mean,
it's Cousins, right?
For me, it's not hard at all.
Yeah.
But like, because it's Kirk Cousins, because I want what I view to be a better quarterback anyways, plus the money. And like, my whole issue and the reason why I don't like this contract boils down to one very basic thing, is that like if you look at the list that you have up right now and you put Jared Goff in there, he's the worst athlete out of all of those guys. And for as much as I think that for as much as I have to kind of eat crow a little bit on the fact that like he has performed better than I originally gave him credit for, and is the leader and does the things well. Like, I still can't identify what makes him, like, quote unquote, better than any other quarterback on the football field.
He's not.
Right. So, like, I can't identify that, and he's the worst athlete of all of these guys. So, like, I think that, so I don't think that the Lions are going to win a Super Bowl in the Jared Goff era, because when he goes up against any of these other quarterbacks, the 6 amazing quarterbacks in the AFC, they have Spirit of Detroit podcast.
Hey, what's up, Spirit of Detroit? Welcome.
I think that they are going to have an advantage over the Lions. So, and if the Lions were to win a Super Bowl in this window, I think if you look back at the Super Bowl winning teams or the teams participating in the Super Bowl inside the modern era of football, which I'm defining as this collective bargaining agreement, so like 11 years ago, like you either have to be someone like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, who and have no athleticism whatsoever, but like the ultimate game manager. But like, and they couldn't move for shit, but like they could get around in the pocket okay, and that's what Jared Goff can do. But you have to be at that level of everything else that they could do. And I think that both of them had better arms than Jared Goff. And or you have to make up the difference athletically, which he can't do. So
you have to have a better team around you.
Correct.
Right.
So in my opinion, in order for them to win a Super Bowl, the Lions need to construct the best non-quarterback roster in the modern era in order to win it. And that seems real tough. Now, do I think they're doing a good job? Yup. But do I think that they're there yet? Nope. And I don't know that they'll ever be one guy away, right?
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions for the chat. Justin, you listed a whole bunch of quarterbacks. What is the context? I'm not exactly sure what that is.
He loves quarterbacks.
Right. So, and then the other one is, Dr. Detroit said yes, simple choice. That was when I was asking the question around what would you rather have, Jared Goff or Kirk Cousins plus $70 million. And I think he said yes and simple choice to that, but then he also said I like Goff over Cousins. My question to him is, okay, is that just a straight up I like him over, like I like Goff over Cousins by a gnat's hair, or I like Goff minus $70 million over Cousins, right? Like I'm just curious what his response there, where the I like Goff over Cousins is.
Oh, I'm sure it's if you're not getting $70
straight
million,
up.
yeah, straight.
That's my guess as well, but I was kind of curious.
Sure. But like I understand why they did this, but this was also my fear about how this team would approach these contract extensions. And it looks like the way that it's going to go is if they feel that you're a quote unquote pillar, so St. Brown, Penny Sewell, Jared Goff, they'll make you the highest paid player at your position or damn close.
Don't forget the punter.
Yeah, Jack Fox.
We made him the highest paid. And special teams, we made him the highest paid special teamer.
That's also true. Good job, Mike.
You don't even have to be a pillar. You just have to be a player.
And so the guy the one guy who didn't get it is Jonah Jackson, who they let simply walk into free agency. So,
which I think was a great move.
Yes, I also agreed with that move. But so it will be interesting to see how many quote unquote pillars they think are on the team, because when you hear the term like this is our guy and he's got all the things that you look for. Hey, Steve-O.
What's up, Steve-O?
When they're a great guy in the locker room and they're a Detroit Lion and we moved up to get him and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's hard to imagine that they don't see Terry and Arnold as a pillar.
I would assume that they do.
Right.
They just they give up a lot of capital to do it, right?
Yeah. And so like now he needs to show that he is, right? And if he does, I can't imagine that he doesn't get, if this is a pattern and this is what they're going to do, then I think that he's going to get near top of the cornerback market money. And when Aiden comes up, I fully expect that Aiden is going to get the most money that an edge rusher has ever gotten, at the time that he signs his extension. And then a week later, who knows, someone will probably beat it. But like at the time that he signed it, he'll be the highest paid, right? And like, that is fine if you do those kinds of things, but you have to let people go and replace them on the roster. So like, I wonder if that is coming. So like, let's look at the Rams as kind of like a potential example, right? The Rams went all in on acquiring pillars, let's call them.
Yep.
Matthew Stafford. I mean, they drafted Aaron Donald. They traded for what's the guy's name? Jalen Ramsey.
Yep. That wasn't all in the same year, but no. It was over a couple of years, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But then those guys were the quote unquote core of the team, right?
Yep.
And they filled the roster in with mid to late round picks, right? And the way that they perpetuated that system was when guys came up, they would let them go into free agency, and they lost way more than they got back. And so they had tons and tons of comp picks. Maybe not like third round comp picks, but they had got a couple fifths, got a couple sixths. Now we can move around a little bit. And I wonder if that is the long-term plan that Brad Holm wants to imitate here in Detroit, is that we drafted our pillars, not traded for them.
Yep.
And then now
except for one, and it turned out to be a pillar, right?
Right, exactly. And now we've got those guys locked in. So with the rest of the roster, we are going to start working that turnover, that life cycle kind of thing. And so I think what speaks to that is that I think that he's already. Oh, thank you so much, man.
Thanks, Spirit. Appreciate it.
That's very nice of you to say. Have a nice night. So when Jack Campbell is a year out from his contract extension, Alex Anzalone's contract will be up. When Jahmyr Gibbs is a year out from his contract extension, David Montgomery's contract will be up. Well, of course he's key. I agree. Yes, I would agree with that, Dr. Detroit. So I think that what you're going to see is they have started to set up for this kind. Well, I won't call it an exodus, but like I don't think that they re-sign Anzalone. I don't think that they re-sign David Montgomery. I don't think that they re-sign Dan Skipper. I don't think that they re-sign, some of these guys.
Because you have to have churn, right? You can only have. We talked about that when we looked at the top 10. I think you guys saw Jordan White. Oh, Dr. D.
What a day brightener.
I know, right?
So,
yeah. Do you want to ban him or me?
Oh, you do. You have the honors. You got all the power.
Yeah,
but like, I think that what you are seeing now with the way that they are roster building is like they have a guy. So like say Kevin Zeitler this year, right? And they have a guy that they are quote, developing. So Christian Mahogany, let's say, just for the or
Manu.
How do you say is Kewado, Awosika, Colby Sorsdal? Those are all developmental guards, right? So if one of the three of them work out, then they can take over for Zeitler, right? So, Giovanni Manu, right? Like if he gets a year of development under his belt and they feel comfortable with it, he can take over for Dan Skipper. I didn't know that Dan Skipper was 6 foot fucking 10 inches tall.
He's huge. I was like, oh, this new guy we got is so big and he's going to replace this other smaller. Oh my God, he's actually an inch bigger.
If football teams were Greek armies, this would be the dude that you were like, all right, your dude is fighting our dude and our dude is the size of that tree over there. Like I had no idea that he was that big. He is enormous, and so like they draft this 6'8", 350 kid from Canada, and I was like, oh my God. And then I was like, oh, he's smaller than Skipper.
I didn't know that either.
Unbelievable.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
So ASIC says Decker might be the first to go. And you and I were talking about what Decker would do when it came to contract time. And if we were, in fact, I will say, probably 4 hours before the Goff extension was announced, Drew called it. He's like, hey man, I've been thinking about this. If if we keep him at the same percentage of the cap as the 10th best or the 10th highest paid quarterback was last year, Stafford was the 10th highest paid quarterback last year, and his percentage of the cap was like 16.5 or
5, yeah.
Yeah. So, and like if we give Jared Goff that same percentage of the cap that's expected next year, he's probably making 54 a year. And I said, "Oh my God, say it ain't so." And shit, you not, 3 hours later, bam, there it is. 53 per year AAV. So you called it, but we also talked about Taylor Decker and what that would look like. And I think when I say we, I mean I think you found that it was gonna be like, what, $24 million to keep his same percentage of the cap that he is right now on an extension.
Yeah, so he's just a little at the height of his current contract. He topped out at like 8.5%. So what I did was I basically said, like, what does the cap look like next year? So I said, okay, so the cap is 255 this year. If it grows naturally by 15%, and the Lions, who have like $26 million in cap room right now, if they use like $15 million for like in-season moves or to like make sure that like they have somebody that can play cornerback or center or whatever based on people getting banged up, say they use $15 million during the season just to handle that kind of stuff, they have $11 million that they can roll over to next year's cap. So that put their next year's cap at something like $281 million. And so when I took 281 and multiplied it by 8.5%, it comes out to a little bit more than $24 million a year. So I was like, oh, okay. So maybe like a 2 or 3 year deal, keep everybody together for that time. He'll be 34, 35 by the time the thing ends. But I was also listening to the Pride of Detroit podcast this morning, and they seem to think like in order for him to stick around based on these other moves, he'll need to take 2/3 of his current salary on like a 2-year deal, which means that he's signing for something like 12. which I don't see.
Yeah.
We're talking contract extensions. Yeah. So the chat is definitely all in on Manu. Hey, what's up, Will?
Yeah.
Hey, Jared, anything about the Ann Arbor situation? So like, I have a hard time believing that if I'm Taylor Decker's agent and I see Penny Sewell get paid, what?
You didn't say Eric Decker.
No?
I'm so proud of you.
Nice.
And you didn't say Taylor Swift. You actually got Taylor.
I got it
anyway,
right.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm happy for you, buddy.
I thought you got the breakdown of the Goff trade or something. I was really excited.
I mean, I kind of did. I posted it, but not like the full breakdown.
Right. So if Decker gets, so what is Decker making right now? Decker is making, almost have it. He is making 19, right? So 2/3 of 19 is 14, 13 million.
Yeah.
Like that's a deal. Like he's not the best.
Why did they think that he was going to take a 33% pay cut?
Age. I can't think of a reason.
Yeah.
His play
I think he points to his PFF grade and the number of sacks, like all that stuff, and go, age is just a number, bro. This is what I'm doing, right?
So players are playing longer and stuff. Like 30 isn't really 30 anymore. I mean,
and he's been a lifer, right? He's been with us from the beginning. He is one of the guys that they called out as being part of the original crew. So I think if anything, they give him the same. I don't think they'd ever ask him to take a pay cut.
Yeah,
but I could say, well, you know what? How about we do the same deal again for 2 more years?
Yeah, which would be great because, if you said he's making 19 or whatever, and like you can get him for 19 for a couple more seasons, that's like future money. 19 million, into a cap 2 years in the future, and the same as $19 million this year. That's a deal. That's what ASICS is talking about with Goff and all these other quarterbacks, like signing extensions to knock him down the list. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is like the 6th highest paid quarterback in the NFL. That doesn't make any sense.
Do you remember when that happened? It was a 10-year, $450 million deal, and everybody's heads just blew up.
Right. And now it's like, oh, that doesn't really matter. So like, I think we started to see it this year in the draft. Like this team can't go out and just draft 7 people that are going to be starters anymore. Like now
they're picking their spots.
Right. So now we're going to identify a player we want. We'll go get them. And like you sent me this article that's like, Brad Holmes doesn't give a shit about what he gives up if he wants to go get a guy that he thinks is quote unquote his guy, right? But like I have a huge problem with that because if that's your rep, then anybody that you want to trade with is going to be like, okay, we're trading with Detroit, ask for the fucking moon.
Yeah, and you'll get it, right?
And if he wants it bad enough, like you always just put it back on him, right? So it's like, well, I really want this guy or whatever. Like, okay, yeah, I'll throw in that 4th rounder. I'll give you a 3rd round pick to move up 6 spots.
Yeah, you don't want to have a tell, like a poker tell, right?
Exactly. So like, how I do like the points per pick metric that kind of internally for our show or whatever. So I looked at all the transactions in the 1st round. Guess who paid out the most on their trade by a significant margin? It was the Lions. And like the thing of it is, no one gives a shit if you give up a 3rd round pick that you don't know who the guy is or how he works out on your team. If the dude that you moved up for hits, right, that is the currency that Brad Holmes has purchased for himself and Dan Campbell with the moves that he has made. Is that the guys that he has more guys who has worked out than have not worked out, right?
Yep.
So no one cares. If you have a 50-50 ratio, guys that do, guys that don't, you're good for life. You're the best GM that's ever lived.
Hatters did bring up a good point. It was necessary that we had to give up the moon to go up and get somebody to replace Will the Beast Harris.
Well, he is a New Orleans Saint now, and I might say super appropriate. So it's a real bummer to bring up Will Harris on the show. So, but like Jared, I mean, okay, So I think what they did was they took Jared Goff from earning what I would call like a mid-level quarterback money, and they took him and they said, you are firmly set in like the top. We view you as if you are a top quarterback in the NFL.
Elite.
Okay.
High-end elite, yeah.
So on Twitter, the first thing that I saw about this, and this was kind of weird to me, is it's like, so what about Hendon Hooker? What a waste of a draft pick. And no, I mean, like, you
Still
and I
need a quality backup.
Right.
Right.
You and I have talked, and it's like Hendon Hooker was garnering first round buzz in his draft year, quote unquote, if he was healthy. He wasn't healthy. He fell to round 3. The Lions took him. Okay. They had him sit out for a year. That's becoming a real trend with them, right? Like Broderick Martin sat out last year.
Manu's going to sit
Manu's
out,
probably
right?
going to sit out this year. So like they don't care about that. That's fine with them. If it's like, well, you're a first round talent, but you got hurt, cool. We'll let you heal. But like Hendon Hooker, I don't think people have any perspective on who Hendon Hooker is. He spent 6 years in college and had 10 good games. That is who Hendon Hooker is. He should have been in a draft class a whole generation of quarterbacks ahead of him.
A whole contract cycle away, right?
Like the whole, like, who was it? So they took him last year. That was the
26.
So the 2020 draft, which was the TJ Hawkinson draft. That's the class that he should have come out in. But he got extensions of eligibility from COVID and a number of other things. So he played a whole generation extra in college and was bad for 5 of them. And the only reason that he started was that another transfer of theirs, Joe Milton, who got drafted this year in the 6th round, got hurt like 3 games in. And he had to come in and he blew up.
Yeah. The Tom Brady effect, right?
Basically,
Bledsoe goes out, Brady comes in.
Yeah.
Plays really well.
So he might be a really good quarterback. But you don't know. And it's now, so there's no path for him to play. He'll play the whole
season. I agree. I think the people that are talking about it being a wasted pick just forget where we were at the time, right?
Hang on. He didn't even play in his 2nd season at Tennessee, dude. I'm pretty sure. Like he lost the camp battle to Milton in the year that he played. The only reason I know it's Milton is because Milton started his career at Michigan. That's the only reason I know that. And I was like, oh, no, the Michigan transfer lost his job to this other guy. Oh, he played at Virginia Tech? Neato. I know. It doesn't matter. He's on the line. What he did in college doesn't matter.
So, like, I think that people are forgetting where we were at the time, right? I think Hendon Hooker was both a backup and a backup plan, right? Because it was going into year 2 or going after year 2. Year 1, Goff was horrendous, and people wanted to run him out of town. And it was probably one of the worst seasons he's ever played in his life, right? Yes. Year 2 comes, he starts off like garbage, turns it around, right? The last half of the season, he played really well, had no turnovers in like the last 9 games or 10 games or something, threw no interceptions and like a Lions record number of consecutive attempts. And we were at that stage of like, who is he? Is he the guy? Or is this an anomaly? We didn't know, right? So I think what we did is we took the opportunity to take a quote unquote first round talent that falls to the 3rd to be a backup if he does play well. And if he doesn't play well, he's the backup plan, right? So I think that's what happened then. And I think it was a valid pick. And right now, he's no longer the backup plan unless there's a devastating injury or something. He's just a backup. And you need that. You need a quality backup because the last thing that I want to have happen to us is win 14 games with Jared Goff, get into the playoffs, get 1-2 games in, and have Goff tear up a knee. And now we've got, somebody terrible, backing him up. I want somebody decent. hopefully he turns out to be decent. We haven't seen him play a snap yet. So I'm really excited about the preseason because I think he's going to get a good chunk of those reps to find out what we've got and it gives everybody something to be excited about as well. But like, that's what he is now. He is strictly a backup. He's no longer a backup plan. We've given Jared Goff, the bag. He is our guy for the next 4 years. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Unless something devastating happens injury-wise or his play just completely tanks. I'm hoping the first doesn't happen. I don't see the second really happening. I can see a dip if Ben Johnson leaves because he's been the genius of going, okay, these are your strengths, these are your weaknesses. Let's really focus on this piece. Let's really focus on the strengths and do everything we can to limit the weaknesses. And not every coach is good at doing that. They try to force round pegs into square holes, and Johnson has done a great job not doing this. So we'll see what happens when Ben Johnson leaves. I have a feeling this will be his last year, and then I'll be really curious to see what we do. But like, I don't see a dramatic fall off unless we get an offensive coordinator that really wants to force a round peg into a square hole. And I don't think Campa will allow that, to be honest.
No, I don't. I mean, if that was the like, oh, hey guys, I want to switch from your gap and zone blocking schemes to strictly zone, and then I just want to throw the ball deep all the time with no under the middle stuff. People will be like, no, we're not gonna fundamentally change everything that we've been building here. Like they are gonna. So that leads me to believe that like they are probably promoting. I just did that. So like that leads me to believe that if Ben Johnson were to leave, that they are going to promote from within. And like what I heard was that Jared Goff and Ben Johnson largely designed this offense together. I have no idea how true that is. It comes from a source that I trust, Eric Schlitt at Pride of Detroit. But like, if that's true and they promote from within, I expect there to be zero difference in the offense that they run if Ben Johnson leaves. So like, of course, then it comes down to like play calling and stuff. And like, here's what validates this contract for me, I think. And I'll give you one scenario and then one non-scenario. One, they win a Super Bowl. Nothing matters if you win a Super Bowl.
Yep.
You won a Super Bowl doing what
build the statue. Let's do it.
Total validation, right? Here's the thing. If you don't win a Super Bowl and like Jared Goff can just go to the line and call plays, if that's the level that he gets to with like leading this particular offense, and he can get a little bit more of that Peyton, Tom Brady kind of trust or the ability to like, okay, yeah, no, go ahead, man. Then I think that then that's the kind of player that you probably do spend this kind of money on. Yeah. And like, here's the other thing. Yeah, Tanner. Yeah, that's the guy.
Yeah,
Tanner Engstrom. Yep. He's like the QB coach or head of like QB development.
Yeah, here's the corollary to that. Yeah. No, that's not the right word. But anyway, Tanner Engstrom leaves to go with Ben Johnson.
No, his OC. How dare you?
Yes. Right? I mean, like that's the stuff that happens though, right? I need to fill my staff. I'm going to go to the guys that I trust, that I've worked with, that know my system. And like, I could see that certainly happening. I'd hate for, to see that happen if he's going to be able to fit right in and do what Ben Johnson does. But that's a thing. It's the thing you have to worry about.
Yeah. And I'm sure that they've thought about it. So it's a bridge you're going to have to cross when you get to it. Yeah. So
William does bring up a good point on Hooker, that he's a classic Jimmy Garoppolo type pick. If he performs well during fill-in duty in preseason, he could be flipped for assets. I think that's certainly something that could happen too toward the end of his rookie contract. We decide that Jared Goff's still our guy. We're just going to mid-round draft another backup quarterback. That's exactly what the Patriots did. And I could see that happening to Hooker as well.
I think I'd have to, if I was another team, if I was one of the other 31 teams in the NFL, I'd have to be pretty deep in my bag of options before I was like, oh, I'm going to call up Detroit about Hendon Hooker. So it's possible. It's possible. I mean,
I
people get
mean,
traded all the
anything can
time.
happen. Matt Flynn got paid like
Oh
$40
God,
million for one fucking game against the Lions.
he did get paid. You know,
I mean, granted, he threw for like 500 yards and blew us up, but
he had a really good
still,
game.
it's embarrassing.
So I look at the team and I think the O-line should be good. That's kind of the beating heart of the team. I don't know that Jared Goff can perform better than what he did last year. I think that would be a big ask. When I look at players like Goff and St. Brown, I think that they are, and guys, tell me if I'm wrong, but like, is it really realistic to expect more from those players now? Because I don't see it. Like, it's possible that Amon-Ra St. Brown catches another 15 passes and like gets another 200 yards of receiving yardage or whatever. But like, is that the difference between a 12 win and a 14 win season? So like, to me, the point is like, you think these guys are pillars, but you're going to pay them for what they're doing, right? Like, I don't know that you're paying Goff for what he's going to become, right? I don't think you're paying St. Brown for what he's going to become or what Penei Sewell is going to become. Like, I think St. Brown is probably near the height of what he can be, and it's going to be how long can you maintain this? And Penei Sewell is one of the best tackles in the NFL, and I'm like, okay, I mean, maybe you can get better, but you're already so good that you're one of the best tackles in the NFL. So neat, like you're a fantastic player, and it's like, to me, the difference on the team is Hutchinson going to be better? What does Aleem look like next to DJ Reader? Does Jack Campbell take a step forward? What does Terrion Arnold look like coming off of this? What are you going to do with Melifonwu? Is he starting, or is Branch going to take his job? And then like Melifonwu was like a package player. I still think he probably plays 60-75% of the snaps on defense, but like in what role, Like,
Yeah.
and if Branch is your strong safety or whatever, then like, is Rakestraw your nickel? How quickly do they adjust? Are they going to get picked on all year? Like, is that good or bad for us? And Will, maybe you can help me out with this. If your defensive backfield is Carlton Davis, Terrion Arnold on the outside, Kirby Joseph, and Brian Branch at safety, and Rakestraw at the nickel, you want Branch and Rakestraw up near the line. So are you playing cover one? Is that the lineup that indicates cover one to you? Because that's what it says to me. So like, if I had the kind of guys that they have drafted are Davis and Terrion Arnold are supposed to be good in press coverage, right? And Kirby Joseph, you want off the line. He wants to be that center fielder roaming in like the back third. And then you want Branch up near the line. You want Rakestraw up near the line because they're very good tacklers. And some of the stuff that they do the best is going after guys who either try and get to the edge or they throw those little screen passes that I can't stand, into the backfield. And then they're trying to like break one tackle and get out. Like, they're designed to not do that.
Right.
And like, if you have 11 dudes within like 6, 7, 8 yards of the line of scrimmage, like, you're going to run on that? I don't think you're going to run on that.
You're going to throw on it, right?
You're going to try and throw on it, right? So like, I mean, I would be thinking that the Lions are going to be in your face aggressive. Please let no one get beat off the line of scrimmage, because it's like chuck, and then it's a race down the sideline. So, so like, to me, like, so I was super worried, like, with all these extensions, like, oh, they're going to run out of cap room. Well, they still have $26 million this year. You're going to they have like 8 picks in next year's draft. So like, I think they go down to like 31 players, guaranteed roster spots. Let me just check here real quick.
We have 49.
49.
next year.
So we'll see what that looks like once they cut it down to 53, right?
Yep. And then 38 the year after.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, if you can get to that point, and then you can replace primarily with draft picks and maybe a re-sign here and there, then your guys out the door are comp picks. Right? So, like, I don't think that even with the money that they've given out and like the money that we know is coming down the pipeline, I don't think that the cap is going to be as detrimental as we feared it would be.
I think we've figured out, we've structured these in a way where I think it's been acceptable, right? We're not gonna be cap strapped like New Orleans was. It'll be interesting to see what it looks like 2-3 years from now when some of those escalations happen. Right now, granted, so will the cap. The cap will go up as well, but Hutch has to get paid. McNeil's got to get paid. 2.5 years from now, where are we at money wise? That's the thing that interests me. And I think Steve-O's right, and you kind of alluded to it before, is what the Rams did, and even what the San Francisco 49ers did, is they built up a lot. They let a lot of assets go. They got a bunch of comp picks. They got younger, and they kind of churned. And I think so. Steve-O says Aleem feels like the core player the Lions will let go when he's up for a contract.
Interesting.
I could see that happening, especially if he's wanting $30 million. I think with Reader in there, I could see that being a thing. We let him walk away. We get a 3rd round comp pick, and then hopefully you make a good pick, right? That kind of thing.
So I don't think he'll ask for 30, but like Reader's on a 2-year deal, and he's not a spring chicken. Like this might be his last stop. Let me just take a look at him real quickly. He is 30. He's 8 years in the league. He has signed a 2-year deal. There's no guaranteed money in year 2, and if you cut him after this upcoming season, you'll take a $5 million cap hit, and you'll get $7 million in cap savings. So you can cut him and save. And then he's got
Reader?
Reader. And then he's got 3 void years after that. So like they voided him up hard. So like I think what he is here to do is to teach guys like Broderick Martin, who is going to be his backup, right? And this is the bridge to Martin, if Martin is the guy that works out. So like yet another cycle, right? So like I think it's a great signing. I think he makes us better immediately. Cover 1, cover 3 have been our big. Yeah, so like I think they are going to re-sign McNeil. I think they are definitely going to re-sign Aiden Hutchinson. The guys that I'm curious
There's no
about,
question,
right, are like Derek Barnes. 4th round
I think
pick.
Barnes is not going to be re-signed. I don't think Anzalone is going to be re-signed.
Right. So like those guys, I think that's the level of player that's not going to make it on.
But JMO, that's one of them. I'm like, well, let's see what he does this year, right? Because he's going to have an elevated position. He's going to be essentially the number 2 guy, probably.
3
expected behind what, Raymond
and Laporta. No,
well, as a wide receiver.
Yeah, he'll be behind St. Brown and Laporta as far as receiving options.
As far as targets. So like he's going to get more attention, more opportunity. If he takes advantage, he's going to be someone that we stick with. If not, we probably just let him walk. But like Tammy says, which I think is probably Brian using his wife's account, but 2 years from now it's going to be tight. But maybe it's Tammy. I don't know. She's a fan. But it's going to be interesting what it's going to look like a couple years from now when we get those extensions for the other guys coming in.
So if you look at the way that they have extended Penei Sewell, St. Brown, and Goff now, their quote-unquote big cost years all hit in different years.
Yeah.
So this is
what I'm saying. They're being really smart about how they're structuring all these.
This is all planned. So like when you take the first hit, let's just say it's St. Brown. When you take the first big hit, like 2025 or whenever it is, and then his contract isn't as bad, the next year, and you absorb Sewell's big hit, and then you absorb that, and then you go on to like Jared Goff's big hit. Okay. But then like Aiden's is going to be the year after Goff, right? And then McNeil's might be the year after Aiden's, that kind of stuff. So like, I think they're building in, let's call them brakes on a car when it comes to the way that the cap hurts them in the long term. Because like next year, they've got 49 guys under contract now. You got to factor Goff's new deal into that, and like you're going to have to cut this roster down to 53 players. So we'll have to see. Aiden is already going to be 15 million in his final year. Yeah, that's based on the rookie scale, and like whether he got elected to a Pro Bowl, didn't he? Aiden?
Yes.
And like it doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't matter if he got elected to a Pro Bowl. He never comes off the field. Like he plays like 1,000. I think he plays like 1,000 snaps.
It was just under. Yeah, he was like the second most snaps in the entire NFL or something.
So he will max out his rookie deal simply based on snap percentage. So there's no reason in getting in taking. They'll pick up his 5th-year option, but he'll never play on it. He'll get extended, and his first year of his extension will be in place of his 5th-year option. Like 5th-year options aren't even that good. I mean, to be honest, like so many of these guys see the field now. So many of them are good right away, or they play a ton. And so like, unless you are a tight end, an offensive lineman, or a safety taken in the first round, you're never going to play on your 5th-year option. Maybe a quarterback, just because it's a quarterback. But like,
and looking at each year, like this year and next year are our windows where everybody's affordable, right? Because like this is 2025, so this is next season. Our biggest hits are Ragnar. Now, granted, Goff's not on here because this was his last year, right? They don't have, over the cap doesn't have his contract there. But I think we were looking at, was it $34 million was going to be the cap hit, around that anyway for the first 2 years, based on the structure that we know about, or that we think we know, right? So he's going to be there, but like, Ragnar's at 14, St. Brown's at less than 14, Reader's at 12. And then in 26, we're going to have a couple other hits, right? Sewell's going to be at 28. St. Brown's going to be at 33. I'm actually going to be surprised if Ragnar's around in 26. I'm not even sure he'll be around after this year, based on his health history and some of the things that he said. But we've only got a couple of those guys, right? 2027. Now, granted, there's fewer because we don't have contracts going out that far. Aiden's not on here, all that kind of stuff. But, $28 million in 2027 is a smaller percentage of the cap, right? Because it's expected to go up significantly more. So these numbers are pretty reasonable for those that many years out. So I'm impressed with the way that they've done, the way that they've structured these deals.
So to answer A6 questions, yeah, he's not going to jump the way that like St. Brown's going to jump, and it's because exactly what you said was that St. Brown made nothing. Like he made either less than or $1 million for the first 3 years of his deal, and in the 4th year of his deal, this upcoming season, he's going to make $3.5 million, and then he's going to go from like $3.5 million to like 20. So like good for him, but like yeah, he's not. I mean, Aiden's not going to get the same kind of jump, but like. The other thing I think that they're doing, and like they have a guy on staff, and I remember when I heard about him getting hired like a year or two ago, it was like, ooh, they got that guy. Ooh, that guy's a big deal in like certain circles. And like, I think that you're starting to see that now because I think he handles all of their contract negotiations for the team. And I think that what you're seeing is he's got a system set up that they're going to take a big hit from a single player in consecutive seasons. However, that hit is largely going to be mitigated by the fact that like the cap is only going to go up, right? And unless there is a global pandemic, like there is no way that cap goes down.
It's the only time it's gone down in the cap era. was 2020.
You know, so and I don't remember how it went up like what 22 this last year unexpectedly.
Percent. I was looking. I want to say it averaged around 15.
Not percentage, like millions of dollars.
Or yeah. Around 15 million is what I believe it averaged.
Yeah. So like,
Um,
I think that they will. If you continue to see $15 million increase or anything close to that, which I think you kind of have to expect because they're never going to charge less for advertising, right? Like Netflix, I think just
not with
signed.
the eyeballs that it gets.
Yeah, YouTube or Netflix just signed something for like 2 billion. So, to televise 3 games or some shit. So I mean, like, everybody wants a piece of this. Like, if you have the ability to stream content, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Twitch at some point tries to get in on this. Like, so like the money is going to keep coming in, and then sometimes these contracts end and have to go up for renegotiation, and then they're going to make another $1,000 billion, right? So like the cap, I can't
10
see
years.
any. Yeah, other than just like, unless it like turns out that like the NFL knows that how badly they're hurting players or something. Oh,
So this is what it's looked like over the last essentially 10 years. It was around 10 million. 10 to 11 million is what it was for about 6 or 7 straight years. The pandemic hit. There was a drop in revenue because they couldn't have fans, right? So there was a $15 million decrease. And essentially they bumped it up 25 million the following year to get the $15 million that they lost plus the normal 10-ish million.
yeah.
And then last year was the first year of the new media deals, I believe, and that's kind of bumped up. So I think they're estimating somewhere between 16 and 18 million per year on average over the course of this new TV contract. And every once in a while, new shit happens. Like they were working on. I think the reason that the schedule was delayed was because they were working on the Christmas Day game or something along those lines that they were trying to negotiate, which I'm sure is going to bring them in another $250 million just for that game, right? 200 million or whatever, something stupid. But yes, I would guess between 16 and 18 million a year.
And if they do end up going, I don't know, maybe you just said this and I didn't hear it, but like if they do go to an 18th game, there's a whole nother game you can advertise for a year, So
That'll
I know
be interesting because they talked about that. They want to get, Goodell basically said, we don't need preseason. And I think that's, philosophically, I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have to be able to evaluate your talent, right? And you need to be able to get some practice reps in, and especially for the youngsters and rookies and whatnot. So I think preseason is a thing that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But did we need 4 games? No, we dropped it down to 3 now instead of 4 games, and they added the 17th game. I see them dropping it down 1 more to 2 and going to an 18-game season with 2 buys.
So if you're not going to get 2 buys, then I don't like the entire thing. But to be honest, I think 17 is fine. Like I can be real happy with 17-3. Like I don't give a shit about the preseason, but like at the same time, I also just am like, I don't know that I care about the 18th game and adding 2 weeks to the season. So like I'm fine with the status quo for a while. Like we don't have to. I mean, the profitability is there. You don't have to rush toward it headlong, like running downhill. They're gonna because they're a money machine. But like, I don't think that I would do that. So,
and I'll be curious when they're going to expand. When is NFL Europe going to be actually an NFL division in Europe?
Never going to happen.
Oh, I think it will.
Never going to happen. So because they did something like that 30 years ago, right? It was NFL Europe.
I mean, it was yes, but it was different. It was not the NFL.
Think about this, right? 9 or 10 times a season, however many teams are in Europe, it's not going to happen. 9 or however many teams are in Europe, London, Frankfurt, Paris, wherever. Those teams have to fly across an ocean to go and play.
Yeah, so they're just not going to have the money to do that.
Well, no, they have the money. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is like, so if you are the London Brigadoons or whatever, or was formerly known as the Jacksonville Jaguars, then every time that you come to the States to play, you have like a 7-hour time difference that you have to make up for. Yep. That's not nothing. And that is also not, I can travel the day before the game and make up that difference. So like you have to give whomever's coming across the Atlantic and vice versa, whoever's going across the Atlantic, 2 days of travel. Yeah. So how do you fit that into a game cycle the way that you currently have it?
Super easy for a couple reasons. So here's maybe not super easy, but I mean they got a lot of compute power that does all the scheduling, right? So I think this is what you do. I think just like in hockey, where you have your West Coast road trips, and you would, because hockey plays 82 games a season, right? It's not just once a week. They'll go off, they'll do an entire West Coast road trip. They're going to hit San Jose, they're going to hit LA, they're going to hit Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, that whole West Coast, right? And they're going to do that over the course of 2 weeks. And then they fly back and they play at home and other things, but they're on the road for, 2-3 weeks at a time during those kind of trips. I think we do the same thing there. I think that that Munich team, that London team, Barcelona, whatever, they're going to come over and they're going to do a 3-week road trip. And they're going to play Detroit and, Arizona and Denver, and then they fly back, right? And I think that's how you have to do that when you're traveling so much, just for the fairness of competition and being able to be ready and the time difference and stuff like that. I do think that they're going to get there at some point. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be in the next 2 to 3 years, but they certainly have the fan base over in Europe, because those games sell out like that. High prices, tons of demand. I think it's inevitable, but it is going to be a few years. And I think that's how they do the travel, is to do road trip type of things.
So here's the next thing. How many teams in Europe do you have to add? You have to add at least 2.
I think you have to have a whole division, right? So you're going to have at least 4.
So that's ridiculous, because you can't add them all in at the same time.
Why not?
You want to add in 4 expansion teams. Hey, Joey. You want to add in 4 expansion teams all at the same time?
I think you have to.
Why?
Because that way they don't always have to. Their entire season will be a road trip otherwise, because they don't have anybody else in Europe to play. But if you're playing 3 other teams, that's 6 of those games that they get to play at home. And yes, the other 11 is road trip, right? But I think you have to. Otherwise, it's 17 road. It's one long ass road trip.
So like, okay, yeah, for your theory, 4 at least, right?
Yeah.
So then, where do you put them?
I think you probably. Well, I think as they are playing in different. Yeah, I think as they're playing in different stadiums in different large cities, they will find out where the best places are.
No. In the conferences.
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know.
If you add 4 teams, you have to split them evenly. So you put 2 in each conference. So now you have uneven divisions.
Yep.
So you either have to redo all the divisions, and so that would make them 8 teams. 18 teams per division, right?
Right.
So what do?
East-west
divisible
kind of
by
thing?
4. So you have to go to 3 6-team divisions, right?
Well, so I think if they do that, do they take that opportunity to go, all right, we have 36 teams.
Yep.
we are going to do 2 18. We're not going to do divisions. We're going to do 2 18 team conferences. 4 of the teams are going to be in Europe, and the other 14 are going to be East Coast, and then 18 are west of those guys.
I absolutely hate it. Like, I think that you have to lead. I think you have to put them in every so often. You can't do 4 at once, because if you're the 4th team, I mean, you have to be able to give them the ability to create rosters.
Right.
And so, like, the way that we look
That's
at
true.
you have to be able to so you're talking about adding 200 and I can't 12 players to active rosters. And like, I love the NFL. All right. But like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's 200 starting caliber players not on rosters today.
Yeah, you'd have to do what the NHL's done when they expanded. You'll have to do an expansion draft where you get to protect X number of players on your roster, and then that team then gets to take one from each team, kind of thing. Or in the NFL's case, maybe it's 2. I think that's actually a really good point. That's I can't imagine if you did 4 of them and 4 teams were doing an expansion draft, because now each team is losing anywhere between 4 and 8 players.
Right.
And the way it was interesting, the way that the NHL did it the last time was there's 22 starters on an NHL team. Not starters, but essentially 22 guys that are dressed.
Right.
And what they did was they said, okay, you can protect 1 goalie. You typically will dress 5 to 6 defensemen. So you can protect 3 defensemen. You have to leave 2 of them unprotected. You can protect X number of forwards, right? And then that left a lot of people, like, if you have 12 forwards and you can only protect 4 of them, you've got 8 guys that are available. So you really have to make a decision as to who you protect and who you don't. And that could devastate rosters. So I think if you were doing 4 teams all at once, so I think you're probably right. You probably would have to do 1 at a time,
Yes.
so you don't devastate rosters all over the place.
So then you have to have
a
mechanism in place. Be like, okay, now this year there's an odd number of teams in the NFL. Which one do we add them to conferences? Are we going to do conferences? Maybe it's just one huge collection of 32, 33, 34, 35, 36 teams, and the top 16, 18 of them get to make the playoffs. And then you do it by seeding, almost like the NCAA bracket or whatever, as opposed to the way that we've done it now. Now, those are monumental shifts.
Yeah.
But like, and if I was doing the NFL, like, I would want a team in like Mexico City, because it's got like 30 million people or some shit in it.
Yeah.
And if if half of a percent of the people,
a game in Mexico City this year, isn't there?
There is going to be a game in Mexico City, which tells me that they're thinking about it. There's also a game in Brazil. Yeah, so they very clearly want the game to go global. But like, the problem with it being global is that people don't understand just how fucking big the planet is. The planet is
it's huge. A big ball.
It's a big long way to go down to Brazil. It's not easy to get there. But I think that if you in the difference that I would see between like what you're suggesting for hockey and like what I see in the NFL is that hockey, you've got 22 guys dressed, right? And there's 6 on the ice at any given time, right? Plus the goalie.
Including the goalie.
Right. So you double that just to get to an NFL team.
More than double it. 22 guys on a roster versus 53.
Right. Almost and so like it. In hockey, the people that play offense also play defense. Right. So like
good ones.
This is the problem.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, there's probably a way to do it. There's probably a way to modify that system to what the NFL is going to do. But adding anything more than 1 or 2 teams is like tectonic movement in the league. And like,
yeah,
I don't think that they will. I mean, they might have a plan over like 10 or 8 to 10 years to add in 4 to 6 teams, but like you cannot keep the structure that the NFL currently has as far as like divisions and conferences and add in anything less than 8 teams. So like, and that would be enormous, an enormous expansion of the NFL.
Yeah.
You know,
I
50
think it's
times
going to
8 is
be a
400
slower
players.
roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I do see, I see it eventually.
I mean, this is another problem. And like A6, I think hit a home run here on this statement, is that 3/4 of the NFL has quarterbacks that deserve to start in the NFL.
Right,
And
25%
and
don't.
25% don't. I mean, look at how many teams go back into the quarterback market every year. Like it's almost a third of the NFL. So it's like you usually get something like you get 15 to 20 to 25% head coach turnover, and it's something like 1/4 to a third of teams turn over their QB. So like if you add in 2 teams, like the problem, the disparity, I mean, like if you want to talk about
You're
like
going to
what
dilute
Patrick
talent.
Mahomes, talk about what Patrick Mahomes would cost on a truly open market. Like if the NFL did like a Madden draft where everyone was available in the whole league and everyone starts over with no players on there, think what would Patrick Mahomes command? It would be unfucking believable. There'd be no price would be too high.
Yeah.
You know, so like
until you realize you can't afford the rest of your team. There is a price that's high. It's like those like, oh, you have $15 to spend, and you pick like people off of this like list. You're like, oh, I'll take this $5 guy and this $3 guy and this $4 guy, and you're like, oh shit, I got 3 more people and $2 more. What do I do?
Yeah, the NFL needs a developmental league like the UFL, where your rights can be owned by like another team, like how they do baseball and hockey drafts.
Sure.
Right? So like you're 18 years old. I draft your rights. I'm not going to see you play until you're 24 or whatever, right? And then I'll call you up to the bigs. And then maybe you could start working in, or maybe you add teams in other countries to the UFL. And you once their rosters are to a certain spot, you just like relegate them up. That would be kind of interesting, as if there was relegation in football.
Like the Premier League?
Yeah, like if you said something like the UFL is a part of the NFL, and whoever wins the UFL title gets the team that gets the number 1 overall draft pick by record, right? So this year would have been Carolina. You're relegated to the UFL.
God, can you imagine what the Lions would have been for the 10 years of Matt Millen? We'd never make it back in.
Oh yeah, no. So like Steve-O makes a point, like the NCAA is turning into that. Yeah, but they're never the NCAA will never merge in that respect with the NFL. I don't think, because that's a completely unregulated industry.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason why they would sign up for all the rules and do things this way when it's the wild fucking West.
Yeah.
In college football right now.
They don't care about rules in the NCAA.
They don't. And like the NCAA has, of all organizing bodies in professional sports, they have the least amount of power to govern their own sport, which is why you're going to see like, and we're seeing it now, like the Big Ten absorbed the Pac-12, the SEC is absorbing the Big 12, and like you are going to lose the 5 to 6 conference structure that we grew up on, and you're going to have super conferences. And then when you have the super conferences, they will secede from the NCAA and start their own organization and govern themselves.
Do you think so?
100%, I think so. They're already starting it up. Like the Big Ten and the SEC this upcoming year have a like exploratory advisory committee that they are setting up to do what is in the best interest of college football. It is their foundational organization to create their own governing body. So like
interesting.
The next conference that's going to get carved up is the ACC. And you are going to have Florida State, Clemson, that group, UNC, they're all going to join the SEC. And the Big Ten is going to take Boston College, the Virginia schools, a couple things like that, and maybe get Notre Dame if they're finally forced into it. and then everyone else will leave, and then like the Mountain West, Sun Belt, and all those like tier 2 leagues or tier 2 teams or whatever are going to band together into what is basically junior level NCAA football. You know,
Yeah.
like Oregon State and Washington State fucking sued the schools that were leaving. They got an injunction to force them to stop leaving. And the courts were like, sure, we'll slow them down, but you can't make them stay.
Yeah.
And it's here Oregon State and Washington State are like, we want to go too. You know, where's
and the whole
going?
thing just imploding.
Yeah, basically. And so like the other teams in the Pac-12 that didn't get picked up by the big boys went and joined the Big 12 or whatever it is, and they're just basically desperately trying to hang on to some semblance of legitimacy. But like whether you're the AC or this revamped Pac-12 Big 12 conference, like the Big 10 and the SEC are just going to fucking annihilate you every year.
Yeah.
Why would you go to the ACC or the Big 12 when the money that the SEC and the Big 10 are going to be able to command from their networks is going to be 5 times the number? I mean, the SEC just
you go where the money
Texas,
is.
For fuck's sake. Texas has the largest individual television network of any college in college football, including Notre Dame, with the Longhorn Network. If the SEC absorbs the Longhorn Network, like they might actually get up to a number bigger than what the Big Ten can command. And if that's the case, the SEC will rule football. So, I mean, that is why before the super conferences happened, the Big Ten reached out to the ACC and the Pac-12 and said, we need a scheduling alliance where we all agree to play each other, and we have to freeze out the SEC because they gobbled up the best parts of the Big 12. Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Texas, even Missouri's good now because they can say that they're an SEC school and they can recruit harder. So like the SEC gobbled up the best parts of their closest geographic rival and got into recruiting in Texas. And now the Big 12, the Big 10 was like, well, we can't compete with that. I mean, we don't have an Oklahoma and Texas sitting on our doorstep with like the second best rivalry game in college football. So like they did what they always did. They went back to who they knew, which was the Pac-12, and they were like, hey, ACC, if you don't want to get fucked over, you need to hook up with us right now. And then the Pac-12 fell apart and the Big Ten just absorbed the best parts of it. I would have gone after Cal and Stanford too. You know, why not? No, they joined the Big 12.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
But like down the road they might, because the bones of the Big 12 or whatever it's going to become and the bones of the ACC, which has largely stayed intact, are going to get picked over. FSU already wants out of the ACC. They already filed suit against the league to get out of there. They want
the U.
The U is in the ACC.
Is it still? Okay.
Yeah. So like, but those teams, why would those teams want to be in the ACC if they're geographically in the same fucking recruiting ground as the SEC, and you can just get in there and be like, yeah, we're a part of the big boys now. Like, come to the U. We're part of the SEC. Like, that just makes so much sense. But like, for all of those reasons and all of that freedom and all the money that all the same networks have to, or like they have to go to the NCAA and these schools and negotiate their own deals. And like, there's no way if I'm getting paid all that money that I'm not going to be like, oh, I want to sign up to be the junior NFL. Fuck that. I'm my own thing. I'm college football, dude. You know, like I'm making my own billions. So I'm surprised Clemson and Miami aren't already in the SEC. I can understand why Clemson isn't. Like, I would rather have a pathway to the college football playoff and by winning the ACC than competing in the SEC. But Miami, I think Miami would be a perfect school for an SEC team. So
yeah, I'm actually surprised they haven't been there already as well.
I'll tell you what, like if it was the Miami that was going on in the 80s, they would be.
80s and 90s, yeah, early 90s
too. Their marketing was everywhere. They were winning.
They suckered me in.
Everything. Yep, they suckered you in, which was the big draw here.
Yep.
And so like it makes a lot of sense, I think, for you to want to add that. Like the Big Ten would love to get Notre Dame. Everyone in the Big Ten hates Notre Dame's guts. But they would,
but they want them so hard.
They would roll out the red carpet for Notre Dame. You want to keep your NBC deal? Fine. You want to keep like your special nuances that you get with graduating your class? Fine. Like all of that can happen. But you have to be a Big Ten team and play a Big Ten schedule. And they make sense. So I have a problem with Notre Dame being an independent and then like having an automatic, like I don't have to play a conference game to make the college football playoff. Whoops-a-daisy.
Because I don't have a conference.
I don't have a conference, blah, blah, blah. But you can watch every one of my games on NBC. Oh, and my rivals are in the ACC and the Pac-12 and all in the Big Ten. Like I got them all spread out over the whole thing.
Because we're special.
So, like Notre Dame will be forced into a conference. They will go kicking and screaming because they have the best deal of any individual college in the NCAA. And they've had it forever. They've had it for like 80 years. As long as there's
It'll be tough to give up.
Yeah. As long as there's been an NBC, there's been Notre Dame football on NBC. So I mean, like,
did I see that? Are they changing the BCS playoffs?
Well, the BCS is dead, but they are changing this. I believe it is this upcoming season in college football. There is an 8-team playoff.
And are there rules about how you get ranked? Because I thought I saw something on social media that said because Notre Dame is not in a conference, the highest they could be rated in the playoff is 5th because they're taking the 4 conference winners as 1, 2, 3, 4 or something along those lines. I don't know enough about that part.
With the 8-team playoff, that might be a consideration because some spots and some bowl games are going to be pledged to conference winners. Yeah. So like a conference winner for, I'm assuming at least 4, maybe 5 conferences are going to be locked in. Like if you win the ACC, you're locked into this spot. But
and I think it was 1 through 4. So they could be the number 1 ranked team in the country, but when it comes to the playoffs, the best seed that they could get is the 5th seed, which I find interesting. And if they get to that point, that's when they go, Big Ten. I don't want to be the 5th seed when I'm the number 1 team in the college football. Like let's do this thing. That might be a catalyst.
That only happens if they lose money.
Yeah,
and I don't think they'll lose any money.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah.
So if you're the 5th team and you get the Cotton Bowl, right, or whatever, that's not like a New Year's Day bowl or anything, but like that's a bowl game.
You're also playing the 4th best player or the best team, so it's a little bit more evenly matched than if you were doing 1v8.
There is no such thing as evenly matched. So like if you look at the way that the 4-team playoffs work, like overall, there were 2 good teams and they fucking rolled the other 2 teams.
Yep.
Like when Notre Dame made the playoff, they got rolled by Bama. Like, and that was Bama at the peak, right?
I would have been curious to see what Georgia did last year if they had gotten in.
Yeah. I mean, like, and that's
I'm not sure Michigan would have beaten them. That would have been a hell of a championship game.
Well, Michigan already got a shit draw because they kept out FSU because Travis Scott got hurt.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, FSU won the ACC.
Yeah.
They were a conference winner with an undefeated record, and they took a 1-loss, non-conference winning SEC school over them. And then they paired them up against Michigan. So, like, conspiracy theories aside, that is what happened.
Yeah.
So, like, I think what you would,
and that was for money too, because no one wants to watch a depleted FSU team where their key quarterback is hurt, and then they had 6, 7 guys pledged to I'm not playing in the bowl game this year or something like that, and it was just
if they would played for the national fucking title, they would have played.
Maybe
no one did Ohio State play in the playoff. I mean, but no one on Washington sat down. No one on Texas sat down. No one on Michigan sat down. Who was the other team? Washington.
I think
Texas,
it was Ohio State,
Bama,
wasn't
Michigan.
it?
No, it was Washington, Texas, Bama, and Michigan.
Bama.
So like, none of those guys sat out. They all fucking played because it mattered. Like those were the last games that fucking mattered in college football, right?
Yeah.
So like, they all played. congrats to everybody that played. I don't like it when players sit. I understand it. I don't like it.
Yeah.
So like if you go to 8, more starters are going to play, whether they're draft eligible or not, because they have an opportunity. But I'll tell you one thing: the one thing that gets rid of this 8 plus team, they're already talking about going to 12. So I mean, like the thing that gets rid of all of this is if you are the 11th seed or whatever, or the 7th seed or whatever, like let's say that's USC next year. Let's just say they're really good and they get like the 7th seed. And like, I'm just not going to play. Like our chances to win this thing are nothing. My NIL deal money is more important to me than like playing in this game or whatever. Or I'm going to be a first round pick and I don't want to ruin my knee. I'm going to do the Senior Bowl instead. Like I could see that happening with the bottom level teams, but like only if it's 8 or more. Yeah. Like when it was 4, it was you got to win this game and you got to win one more game.
Yeah, you don't have to have a hot streak of 2.
Exactly. And like Washington looked great against Texas. I mean, that's the thing that like the thing that I'm excited about now is that like Michigan and the Big Ten had a scheduling tradition with the Pac-12 my whole life. Like when I was growing up, the winner of the Big Ten and the winner of the Pac-10, we went and played in the Rose Bowl, and that mattered, right? That mattered. And like,
yeah,
I didn't like Washington State because like Michigan was playing them in the Rose Bowl one year or whatever, or like MSU got to go to play the Rose Bowl against, a Pac-12 school, and that mattered. And I'm getting buzzed here. Yeah. So, but like the Big Ten is talking about with just like, because there's 20 teams in the Big Ten now, or 18 teams, like they're talking about not having divisions and just going to a straight ranking. But like the Michigan Ohio State game is not going to be at the end of the year anymore. It's going to be like the second to last game. And under like the new scheduling things, like there's a possibility like the last 3 times that Michigan and Ohio State have played under the new rules, if they had been implemented, we would have had to have played Ohio State the last game of the year in the Big Ten championship game and then in the college football playoff. We would have had to have played them potentially 3 weeks in a row. Or 3
that would have been great though, wouldn't it?
I would have been, no, it's terrible. Because like the thing about
the amount of hate and vitriol by game 3 would be fucking amazing though.
I mean, we've never needed any more
storyline, right?
Well, I mean, but like that, I mean, that's just it. Like we've never lacked for storylines, and like I will say that like the last 3 years in the Big Ten title games, Michigan played Iowa, Purdue, Iowa. I mean, that's not exactly like murderer's row or whatever. Yeah. Like those teams play hard and like they're worthy of respect, but like they are not Ohio State. They're not Penn State, and certainly coming in, they're not Washington and Oregon. Like, yeah. I think Oregon, first of all, Oregon kind of has a pseudo rivalry going on with OSU right now. They had a home and home with them in the last 5 years where they each got to play each other. Like Oregon came to Columbus and like OSU went out to Salem or whatever. But like they already have a pseudo rivalry going, and I would love something like the Battle of the O's. I think that would be fucking cool as shit. And like I think Oregon is set up to win the Big Ten next year. Like they are great.
Yeah.
So
which division are they in?
They are in the West.
They're in the West. So they should probably roll through that division.
The West. I always wanted to play Ohio State at the end of the year, even when they were kicking our ass for like the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I always wanted to play them because I hate their guts. I can't stand them. Yeah. But like if Michigan...
I totally understand. I'm not even a Michigan fan and I'm on board.
Yeah. But if Michigan had been in the West, Michigan had a chance to be in like 15 to 20 additional Big Ten championship games. Because the West is just not the same. Every so often, Iowa's good or Wisconsin's good, or
Minnesota they're in the West too, right?
They are, I guess.
They randomly have a good year.
Yeah, and like there's the thing. Ever since like the NCAA moved to 25 scholarships a team, as opposed to just like however much money you have is how much scholarships you can give out. Once they dropped everything down to 25, teams like Indiana, Minnesota, those teams got like, we're not just going to beat you by 56 points. Like, that's like, you can't just overlook Indiana. Indiana is fucking tough. And like, they are playing on pride and the fact that they don't want to get humiliated. And that is enough most of the time. And like, especially like Michigan, that's the only perspective I can talk from. But like Michigan, this last couple of years, they always seem to play Indiana, right? And it's always a fucking nightmare. Or Maryland is always a nightmare for Michigan. And it's
Appalachian
always
State.
Like, okay. So like,
I had to.
You didn't.
But, I did.
No,
man.
You didn't. So
is it too soon?
Well, I mean, it's just not relevant anymore. I mean, that's a long time ago now. So, but you know, like randomly one of those teams will be good, and like you can't travel to Wisconsin or Indiana or Maryland and be like, we're just going. I mean, Maryland took Ohio State to like 2 overtimes a couple years ago. You know, like I like where college football is headed, and like I like having the quote unquote West Coast teams in the Big Ten, but because the Big Ten didn't get absorbed by somebody else, like the thing that I grew up with is going to stick around, you know, because
I think a lot of that is because of the Michigan State rivalry and the Michigan Ohio State rivalry. Both were national storylines all over the place, right? And you didn't have that many. And even the Michigan and Michigan State versus Notre Dame,
right?
That was so like we had rivalries between 3 powerhouse teams for that had been a powerhouse for a lot of years, and rivalries that everybody in America, well, college football fans across the country enjoyed seeing that many. I don't think UFC has those kind of rivalries that everybody wants to see, right? So I think that helped the big. True, they've got one, right?
Yeah.
But they did. I don't think they had the web of rivalries that are nationally recognized like the Big Ten did, and I think that helped be the anchor for the absorptions.
Yeah. So I mean, like I would have liked to see the Big Ten also bring in Oregon State at least, because Oregon State, and I think it's called the Apple Bowl. Or something like their rivalry is called like the Apple Bowl, like, and it is vicious. I mean, like that is the kind of thing that you would want, like in like to televise on like Big Ten Network or whatever. So I think that would have been cool. But like, I mean, it's kind of a nice way for us to end the podcast, kind of talking about college football. I think, and like it was a good question in the chat about why didn't these teams go, to wherever, or what, maybe the NCAA could become the junior NFL or what have you, but. I do think the things that I think the NFL need to do, just real quick, they need to have a more defined referee union. They need to have full year referees and training for their referees. You got to do that. Please stop having your referees be like fucking baseball. And like, then I think they need a developmental league with the eyes toward international expansion. So if you need to buy the UFL, just buy the UFL. The odds are going to tell you that it's going to fold in the next 2 years anyways, So like buy them, buy the market.
So is that even a asset is that something they want to do if they think it's going to fold anyway?
If you fucking prop them up, it is. I mean, it is a breeding ground. You can test your rule changes. So like if you go to the competition committee and you get a rule passed, you can test it out in the UFL for a year first. Great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Like, just do that. You can see how it plays out in real time.
And the then, UFL doesn't play the same time frame, right? Don't they play more summer?
And that's another thing you can do.
Yeah.
That's another thing you can do. You can have your regular season eat up all this shit, and if you want your developmental league to compete with the NBA and the MLB and soccer and all that shit, awesome. Back them up and get the marketing rights on some of your contracts or whatever. And like you might have another couple. I mean, there's a UFL team in Michigan. And they are playing in their conference championship or whatever next week. So, like, people will go. I mean, you see 275,000 people just went to watch the draft. I'll bet a fraction of those people go to watch the Michigan Panthers play, if it matters.
Yeah.
So,
if it matters, right?
I think there's things that they can do. But we talked tonight about, like, what the Lions did, and that was extending Jared Goff. He is the quarterback, I think, for at least the next 4 seasons in Detroit. Yep. I think they get out of that deal when the team option comes up, and that's the time they're going to have to actually move on from him. He'll be 35, and like they'll have all their pillars, quote unquote, on second contracts, and they'll need to move to a rookie contract
in their 20s.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You'll need to move to a younger quarterback on a rookie quarterback deal to like help reset your cap. Right. So that all makes a lot of sense now. We've seen the cycles get built into the rosters and a number of positions. And, does Lee McNeil allowed to be test free agency? Are they going to lock up Aiden Hutchinson? One would expect so. Yeah. So we're just going to have to see what they do next. And that's the fun of it. So
it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. But appreciate everybody in chat. A lot of new faces in chat too. A couple. Yeah,
we're gonna have to check out Spirit of Detroit. Figure out who those guys are.
Yeah, appreciate you guys jumping in. We're here every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Even if there's tornadoes, which happened last week, and Drew had to bow out for about 10 minutes to take shelter, and it went. There was a tornado that hit. It was on the ground for 11 miles. A lot of destruction.
No deaths, though.
No deaths, thank God. But just within a half a mile of you as the crow flies. So
my buddy has chastised me for saying it was so close when he thinks it's like a mile and a half. And I was like, I don't care if it was a mile and a half or a half a mile. It's the same amount.
Far too close.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty close.
It doesn't take a tornado long to make it a mile, so. Yep.
So, but he was safe. So that was good. But we'll see everybody next Tuesday. Pound that like button and subscribe. We're up to, I think, 105 subscribers now. So that's awesome.
Closing in on that 200 mark.
Technically, that is accurate.
Yeah.
But we'll see you guys next Tuesday. Appreciate y'all.
See you guys.